Welcome to Anchors My Way, a podcast brought to you by Into Cruising. I'm your host, Shakira, and I'm here to take you on an exciting journey through the world of cruising. Whether you're an experienced cruiser or just planning your first trip, I've got something for you. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anchors My Way. As I promised in my last episode, I'm going to continue to explain to you my goals into cruising, into the cruising world. So I established already on my last episode that I went from couples cruising to solo cruising. And if you're just tuning in, I made that transition in late 2022. Once I knew I was powerful enough to do solo travel, and then I wanted to challenge myself by setting up a personal goal. I've been traveling and cruising since 2012, but not as frequent and as much as I will set myself to have. I would like to have a big goal. So a lot of you might not know, but I am old enough to be setting up goals. Not too old, but I am 47 and I gladly say it because I understand the severity of the situation. It is not as simple as being 20 where you have your whole life ahead of you. So in this plan, time is of the essence. In a late night in December in 2022, I sat down and being sure that I could cruise by myself and knowing what I was capable of doing and had no obstacles in my way, I started planning my 2023 adventures. It was that day that I realized that cruising was never just a hobby for me. I needed to come up with a strategy and do my cruises as soon as possible. So I came up with a 50 at 50. And you might be wondering, what did I wanted to have a total of 50 cruises done by my 50th birthday? I was 46 and I only had 4 more years to fulfill this challenge. So that's the reason why I wanted to pressure myself into this. At the time that I was planning, being this put together and the whole thing, I had made a total of 24 cruises. So imagine the surprise when I discovered that I wasn't even halfway through my threshold. My head was spinning because I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do this. I will have to do a total of 24 cruises in 4 years, which is a lot for my lifestyle. I started strategizing, and it's easier said than done. In writing, it was so simple. It was like cruising. I like cruising in all seasons. So it was really simple to put it all on paper. Financially, and with limited vacations, it made it a little bit harder. So I was just trying to do this challenge and put it together. This was going to be like working on a miracle for a kid in Christmas. I got to work on my strategy. According to my plan, we needed to do 7 to 8 average cruises per year, each consecutive year. So the plan is to do 8 cruises in 2024, 7 cruises in 2025, and 8 cruises in 2026. Then comes the final year, where I plan to do 3 consecutive years. Then comes the final year, where I plan to do 3 consecutive cruises, January, February, and March, when it's my birthday. And I will turn 50 on March 3rd. So I had to finish my deadline of having completed 50 cruises at the age of 50. The ideal cruise planner will separate cruises at least 1 year in advance. So that's exactly what I try to do. So I gave my deposits for all my cruising for the following year for 2024. Sounds simple, but here's where it sounds simple, but here's where it gets complicated. I have a full-time job where it only allows me 2 weeks vacation a year. So this is the way I use my PTO. Once a year, I do a 1-week cruise, usually to an international destination. And then the rest of the cruises, I would have to break them into weekend cruises and cushion it with the holidays in order to stretch out these 2. In order to stretch out these 2 weeks, I would have to do it exactly like that. The planning works out, and so far we've got it all strategized, right? So now we're all leaving it to God and putting it on God's hands and it's also working out because of the location. What I mean is that God has to work his magic and make sure I keep my finances And I also don't live the city where I live. I travel from Miami, which, as we all know, is cruise capital. So it's great, right? You would say. The beauty of living in Miami is the commodity that I have the benefit of being minutes away from Port Miami. I am also able to drive to Port Canaveral, which is 4 hour drive. So this year I've added a few more options doing both ports. I know you probably think it's a great location, and I will have to agree. But it has its pros and cons. The pros are there so the pros are there the pros are that there are so many ships available, to which I have already done the majority of it. Let me specify that part. And the cons are that you're basically doing the same itineraries over and over. Because let's be real, Miami ships only go to Caribbean closed islands on the weekends, like Nassau and their private islands. With that said, let's make clear that Nassau is like my second home. I can just stroll all day through Nassau because I've been there so many times. But I'm not complaining, because it's like the saying goes. Any cruise, any day on a cruise, it's always better than a day on land. I could only do this if I didn't I couldn't do this if I didn't live in Miami. If I lived upstate and had to fly and if I lived upstate and had to fly all the time, I could not do so much cruising. That I'm clear with. So I started driving a little more, not only going out of Miami, moved a little bit up north, driving up to Orlando to vary the ships and be able to get a few extra new ships and maybe a little different itinerary. Although most of the Orlando cruises also go to Caribbean and the smaller islands. I wish I could do flights to New York, but that takes a little bit more planning. So I would have to have more days, which I don't have. I wish I could go to New York and fly out of there, but that takes a little bit more planning. And I don't have that kind of time. I would have to fly on a Friday, come back on a Monday. And also what I've seen and researched, New York doesn't have long, but also what I've seen and research in New York, they only have itineraries of 7 days. They don't have 3 and 4 day cruises. And let's be realistic, they only go to Bermuda or Bahamas. And I'm not going to fly all the way from here to New York when I could do it from my hometown. Unless there's a brand new ship or something really exciting, I'm doing my cruises close to home. Unless there's a brand new ship or something really exciting, my 1 week, I usually spend it on international cruises, destinations that I've never been to. And don't think this discourages me at all, in any shape or form. I'm working towards my 50 at 50. So we're working against all odds, but it's happening. To me, it doesn't matter if you go 50 times on the same ship or you go 3 times to the same places. I always discover something. I always have something new and exciting to do on a cruise ship. So, based on my previous experience, they're all going to be perfect. After all, no two sailings are alike. But those are details for another episode. So, yeah, I might sound like I'm doing sailings instead of cruises. I might be doing 15 sailings, and I'm fine with that. They're all going to be magnificent, and they're all going to be the experience of a lifetime because I'm into cruising. I've been cruising since 2012, which is a long time. I have got here. I this That's how I got here, but it was very sporadically and disorganized. This year, I have already done 4 cruises: MSC Seashore, MSC Magnifica, Celebrity Reflection, which I just did, and MSC World Europa, where I did my once a year international trip. We had an amazing itinerary. I got to visit France, Italy, and Malta. Beautiful ship with a new Mediterranean itinerary for me. I could not pass. And it was on my birthday week, so I really had to do this. So I have to keep strategizing. I'm on track. I've got 29 cruises down, and at the time of this episode, August 2024, I would have completed my number 30th cruise, which is Utopia of the Sea. You have no idea how excited I am about this. The world's newest Oasis class ship and a weekender. To all of you, it might just be another Oasis class and just a weekend. But to me, it's like they answered my prayers. I have been dying to do big Oasis ship. Like, for example, the Icon when it came out. I wasn't able to do it because it's only a 7 day itinerary. And they all of a sudden Royal Caribbean comes up with this brilliant idea that they're going to do a brand new huge trip that does only weekends, or it does weekends and 3 and 4 days. But how cool can that be? I was really, really excited when I heard this news. It's really hard because financially I need to get all these cruises paid, planned, all this time off, make sure that nothing gets in the way. When those three things are aligned, then I can do them. So planning and strategizing is one thing, and actually making it and seeing it how it becomes in reality, it's another. You have no idea how many times I stare at my planning on my Google Sheets and I'm like, how am I going to make this? How am I going to do this? Like, is there going to be a miracle? And usually there is. So that's why I believe so much in God. Next year, I have 7 cruises. I need to start planning. An ideal cruiser would supposedly plan a year and ahead. I don't have the financial means to do that. So I will start at least 6 months. So I would love to do this on 2025 or 2026. And that's my plan, to get organized enough where I can plan my cruises a year in advance due to pricing, due to stability. And I know the cruise lines are going to go up, so I need to do this planning into furthermore. For the year 2027, it's going to be my grand finale. One of my journeys is going to be my last cruise, 50 and 50. I want it to be spectacular. I want it to be the one that I will never forget. Although I don't think I'll ever forget any of my cruises. It doesn't matter how little or how big it is. I plan to do January, February, and March and finish strong with an exotic destination for my birthday while we make my 50 at 50. I wanted to explain this challenge in detail so that you could see why I'm into cruising. And after all that, what? What? You might be asking yourselves. Then it comes the planning of another journey, possibly a world cruise. But that's another story for another episode. Totally different. I hope you stay long enough to I hope you stay long enough to enjoy this journey as we travel the world one cruise at a time. I hope knowing all the details about my journey would help you follow along. I will ask you to stay tuned for the next episode where I will talk about why I choose cruising over all types of traveling methods. See you on the next episode.